Today I'm going to be talking about Legendborn, a new book by Tracy Deonn, full of, as they say, Southern Black girl magic. It's an exciting read. It's a very acclaimed book. It just won a Coretta Scott King Award, and it's on the New York Times bestseller list. And before I get into the book, I'm just going to talk about history because there is an important history to this book. Actually, there's more than one important history to this book. You'll see what I mean. Hi, I'm Andrew, the young adult and media librarian at North Brunswick Public Library. Who do you think is the greatest hero of all time? Maybe the one who's appeared in the most books or movies or stage shows or TV shows? I don't know, your guess is as good as mine. But there's one character who's been popular for centuries. Really, really, you could trace it back maybe to the 6th century or close enough to that. Here is King Arthur. He's from a tapestry from 1385 by an unknown author, which I got this picture from the Wikipedia article on him. And yes, that's a secret. Sometimes we use Wikipedia, but of course we always have to double check and make sure that it's useful. The idea is Arthur has been some figure of Arthur, some version of him, and the Knights of the Round Table and Merlin have been around for as long as anyone can remember and beyond. Right, here are some of the most famous works. And by the way, we have all these books or works either in our physical collection or on Hoopla or both, if you're curious. We could go back as far as the 12th century, although stories about him even predate that, with Geoffrey of Monmouth. And then there's La Morte d'Arthur by Thomas Mallory. That's one of the books that a lot of sources a lot of versions go back to that particular source. But no matter what you see on this modern cover, don't pick up a real sword that way. Yeah, a very, very bloody hand. I don't recommend that at all. Jumping ahead a few centuries, you have a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court. And this actually shows, in my opinion, it shows something about how Mark Twain felt about the popularity of these medieval romances that sprung up in the South, right? Some historians will tell you that that Sir Walter Scott's romantic novels and these visions of knights and kings and queens were really part of a plot to keep Southerners excited about keeping slavery and even seceding from the Union during the Civil War, which of course Mark Twain had lived through. So it's a very satirical look at it. The Once and Future King by T.H. White. I actually put down that it's the different stories, the different novellas in there were published at different times from 1938 to 1958. So T.H. White, he had lived through world wars. The first book in that, the first book in Once the Future King, Sword in the Stone, came out in 1938. That was before World War II, but after World War I. And it actually has a sort of a cynical look at the war. And he looks at the idea that King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table tried to make it so that might equals right, and he disagreed with that. Then we get up to the 1980s, right? We have Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley, which is a lot of stories from a female perspective. So already we're seeing that these takes on King Arthur are really products of their time. And you can even see that in our own collection with much more modern takes on them that you might enjoy. Sometimes it might be King Arthur set in space or in the future or both, or today, or it could be uncovering a mysterious chapter in the legend, as is the case of the Guinevere Deception, which is the first book in a new trilogy by Kirsten White. Okay. And of course, we never go more than a few years without seeing King Arthur in some movie. Just like the books that I just showed you, you can always place a hold on any of these movies on DVD through your library card. By the way, The Sword and the Stone and the musical Camelot are both based on the Once and Future King, which I looked at before. And of course, my favorite version of King Arthur and Camelot in film is Monty Python and the Holy Grail, for those if you want something just completely irreverent and silly. All this brings me to the book that I'll be talking about today, Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. By the way, if you look at this version, you can see that it won the Karate Scott King Award. That was very recent. Our copy actually doesn't have that, but we certainly do have a copy that you can place on hold. And like those other books, it really takes a look at the legends of King Arthur and Merlin and the Knights of Camelot from its own time. And since it's a very new book, it came out late 2020, it really comes out in the time where so-called Confederate hero statues are being overturned. That some of the that we're taking a different look at heroism now than we've looked at before. And in this book, we really we follow along with a teenage girl named Ray. She's African American, and she and her best friend are accepted into a special program for high schoolers at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which is a university which has a very long history in this country. And while she's there, the two of them go out. Well, while they're both there on the first night in campus, they both go off campus. They're sort of breaking the rules, and they go off to a creek where there's a big party going on. But also something very strange happens, and that a demon comes, and there's a lot of strange activity there. And so what she sees is there's one mysterious a young man who seems to be a college student who's actually seems to be casting spells and trying to get everyone away from the demon and trying to erase their memory. All right, so this happens. So we're dealing with very early in the book. Chapter 2, Leave Now. I'm leaving now. That seems right. Good. Best even. Behind me, Dustin is leaving too. I need to go. He shakes his head like he can't fathom why he hasn't left the party already. I find myself nodding in agreement. Toro told us to leave and we should do as he says. We're on the gravel path now, the lot a few minutes walk through the trees. I trip on a branch, lurch to the side, and catch myself again against a trunk, hands slapping across the jagged pine bark. The quick stinging pain from my already scratched palms cuts through the smokiness of leave and the lingering spice of now until both words dissipate. Instead of passing on me like a weight, the command flits gnat-like around my skull. Dustin is long gone. I gulp oxygen until my thoughts feel like my own again, until I'm in my body enough to feel the sweat-damp cotton t-shirt clinging to my back and chest. Memories rise like bubbles through oil, slow and sluggish until they explode into rich technicolor. Selwyn, his bored expression, his mouth spilling words into the night like a cold wind until they swept away my intention to stay and replaced it with his command that I leave. His will wrapped around my memory of the flying creature and ground it down into a pile of dust and fractured images, then rearranged that pile into something new, an unremarkable blank space above the campfire with no creature in sight. But that new memory doesn't feel real. It is a thin, flimsy layer created from silver smoke, with the truth visible and concrete underneath. He gave us both false memories, but now I remember the truth. That's impossible. A voice sends me ducking behind a tree. It's just these four. The rest made it to the parking lot. It's Tor, the blonde girl who yelled at everyone. Can we make this quick? I have a date with Sarah. Drinks at Tap Rail. And Sarah will understand if you're late, Selwyn. This one was nearly corporeal. I had to wipe those last two kids' memories just in case. I stifle a gasp. They're both still there at the clearing 20 feet away. Whatever they're doing, they're working together. Tor and Selwyn are visible between trees, circling the campfires, looking up. The murky green shape is still there in the sky, flashing in and out. The four drunk football players must have been absolutely plastered, because they're only now coming up for air. They sit back, chests heaving, faces bloodied, expressions disoriented. One of them moves to stand, but Selwyn is at his side in the blink of an eye. His hand drops like an anvil on the drunk kid's shoulder, pressing the larger boy down so hard and fast that I hear his knees crack when they hit the earth. The athlete screams in pain and curses, falling forward onto his hands. I muffle my own cry. Dude, another boy shouts. Shut up, snaps Selwyn. The wounded boy struggles in Selwyn's grip, but Selwyn holds him down without effort, without ever looking. Selwyn's gaze hasn't left the flickering thing moving from above their heads. After several pained breaths, the boys release a low moan. The rest of you, over here with him. The other three boys exchange glasses in silent debate. Now, he barks, and they scurry together on hands and knees to sit next to their injured friend. In that second, I realize I have a choice. I can go find Alice and Charlotte. Alice will be worried sick. I can leave like Selwyn told me to. I could put my wall up again, this time against whatever is happening here with the kids I don't know from a school I've barely started. I can hide my curiosity, just like after Bree, just like my grief. Or I can stay. If this isn't just a trick of grief, then what is it? The stress streams down my forehead, stings my eye. I bite my lip, weighing my options. As soon as I get them out of the way, it's going to bolt, Selwyn cautions. You don't say, Tor says dryly. Snark later. Hunt now. Hunt. My breath quickens. I want to talk a little bit about, she mentioned after Bree, right? Bree in Bree's narration. One thing that we learn about Bree early in the book is that her mother died about a year ago, and she's been grieving, and it's been a very difficult process for her. So much so that she wonders if there's something strange about her death. And and Selwyn, who seems to be this mage, is very suspicious of Bree when Bree seems to resist his magic, the magic that would basically make her forget about the demonic encounter and run away. So, but her investigation leads to this secret society with ties to King Arthur and Camelot. I don't want to give too much away. Now, of course, there is a love triangle in there involving another character named Nick. And Nick is this very heroic, he looks like your typical heroic figure, but he sort of turned his back on the society. And the two of them do bond. And, and Bree really feels like she stands out in this society because here are a bunch of kids, almost all white, who come from long heroic ancestries. And here she is an outsider. Also in the book, she goes to a very unconventional therapist, and I want to give to, and that I think that's probably my favorite, if not, or at least one of my favorite parts of the book. And she learns that there's different heritages of magic, in her family, and then the family descended from Camelot, and their histories intertwine, not always in a very positive way. as she learns a bit about her own history, or and again, I'm really trying not to give too much away here, but it's a book that has a lot of thought, but also a lot of action, especially the last 50 or 100 pages or so, that are fun to get caught up in. So I think that it's really very much a story of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table for today, for the United States in the 2020s. And if you've read this book, I'm curious to hear your opinions on it. Again, if you haven't read it, it's very easy for you to put a hold on it. You can either go to our website, northbrunswicklibrary.org, or call us. And I'd love to hear any other requests you have. Are there other particular versions of the story of King Arthur and Camelot that you love, that you enjoy? Please give me feedback. I'd love to hear from you. And happy reading.